Welcome to Lesson 7 of Week 8. Personnel costs typically represent the largest single category in grant budgets, often accounting for 50 to 70% of total direct costs. Given this magnitude, understanding how to properly budget, charge, and document personnel costs is essential for successful grant management. Personnel cost compliance involves more than simple math. The regulatory framework governing compensation on federal grants includes requirements for reasonableness, effort documentation, and institutional-based salary calculations. Violations can result in significant audit findings and repayment requirements. This lesson will help you understand how to calculate personnel costs for budget preparation, the effort certification requirements that govern salary charges, common compliance issues and how to avoid them, and best practices for managing personnel costs throughout your project. Remember that regulatory specifics discussed were accurate as of November 2025. Verify current requirements at ecfr.gov. By the end of this lesson, you will be able to budget personnel costs accurately and manage salary charges in compliance with federal requirements. Effort is a foundational concept for personnel cost management. Understanding what effort means and how it relates to compensation is essential for proper grant budgeting and compliance. Effort is defined as the proportion of time spent on a particular activity. It is expressed as a percentage of total professional activity, not as a count of hours. A researcher might commit 25% effort to your grant, meaning 25% of their professional time will be devoted to your project. Total effort always equals 100% across all activities. Whatever someone does professionally, it all adds up to 100%. This includes sponsored projects, instruction, administration, clinical work, and any other professional responsibilities. No one can commit more than 100% effort across all activities. Project effort is the percentage of total work time devoted to your specific grant. This is what you budget and what gets charged to your grant. If someone commits 15% effort to your project, 15% of their salary is charged to the grant. A key insight is that effort is about time distribution, not hours worked. Whether someone works 40 hours per week or 60 hours per week, their effort distribution remains the same. 25% effort means 25% of whatever they work. This conceptualization can seem counterintuitive but is essential for proper effort accounting. Calculating personnel costs is straightforward once you understand the underlying concepts. The basic formula provides the foundation for all personnel budgeting. The basic formula is annual salary times percent effort equals project salary. If someone earns $100,000 annually and will devote 25% effort to your project, the project salary cost is $25,000. This calculation applies to each person on your budget. For a concrete example, consider a researcher earning $100,000 per year who will commit 25% effort to your 3-year grant. Year 1 project salary is 100,000 times 0.25, which equals $25,000. For multi-year projects, factor in anticipated salary increases. Most organizations provide annual merit increases, cost of living adjustments, or promotions. If you expect 3% annual increases, Year 2 salary would be $103,000 and the project charge would be $25,750. Building in reasonable salary escalation demonstrates realistic budgeting. Part-year calculations are needed when someone joins or leaves the project mid-year. If a researcher at 25% effort joins 6 months into the year, their charge for that year would be half of the full year amount. Prorate appropriately for any partial year involvement. Institutional-based salary is a critical concept for calculating personnel costs on federal grants. Understanding this concept prevents compliance problems and ensures accurate budgeting. Institutional-based salary, or IBS, is the annual compensation paid by the organization for an individual's appointment, whether that appointment is full-time or part-time. IBS reflects the regular ongoing compensation for the person's position, not variable supplements or extra payments. Components of IBS include all regular compensation paid by the institution, base salary, administrative supplements for duties like department chair, and regular clinical compensation all typically count. However, one-time bonuses, incentive payments, and compensation for activities outside the regular appointment may not be included. Your institution should have clear IBS policies. Consistency requires that the same IBS be used across all funding sources. You cannot use one salary figure for federal grants and another for foundation grants or institutional activities. The IBS must be applied uniformly, with effort distribution across all activities totaling 100% of that consistent base. 2 CFR 200.430 governs compensation requirements for federal grants. This regulation establishes standards for compensation reasonableness, IBS determination, and effort documentation. Review this regulation and your institution's implementing policies before preparing personnel budgets. Some federal agencies impose salary caps limiting the compensation rate that can be charged to their grants. Understanding these caps is essential for accurate budgeting on affected awards. The NIH salary cap is the most prominent example. NIH limits the salary rate that can be used when calculating charges to NIH grants. The specific cap amount is set by Congress and adjusts periodically. As of November 2025, you should verify the current cap at the NIH website before preparing budgets. The cap applies to the amount charged to the grant, not what the person actually earns. If someone earns $300,000 but the cap is $250,000, charges to NIH grants use $250,000 as the maximum base, regardless of actual compensation. The person still receives their full salary. The grant simply cannot cover the portion above the cap. Calculation using caps requires determining effective maximum effort. If someone's actual salary exceeds the cap and they commit 20% effort, you calculate 20% of the capped amount, not 20% of actual salary. The institution absorbs the difference between actual salary and capped charges. Different agencies may have different limits or no caps at all. NSF generally does not impose salary caps. Other agencies have various policies. Always check the specific requirements for your funder before preparing personnel budgets. Effort certification is a critical compliance requirement for personnel costs on federal grants. Understanding this requirement helps you maintain appropriate documentation and avoid serious compliance problems. Federal grants require documentation that salary charges reflect actual effort expended. It is not sufficient to budget a certain effort level. You must also demonstrate that the person actually devoted that level of effort to the project. This documentation protects against improper salary charging. Certification involves individuals reviewing and certifying that the effort distribution charged to various activities accurately reflects how they actually spent their time. Typically, the person whose salary is charged or someone with direct knowledge of their activities performs this certification. Many institutions use effort reporting systems that generate periodic certifications. The legal weight of these certifications is significant. Effort certifications are legal documents that carry accountability for accuracy. Certifying inaccurate effort can constitute false claims, with serious legal consequences including civil and criminal penalties. Take effort certification seriously and ensure accuracy before signing. 2 CFR 200.430 paragraph I governs effort documentation requirements. The regulation requires systems that provide reasonable assurance that charges reflect actual effort. While specific system requirements have some flexibility, the underlying obligation for accurate documentation is firm. Organizations use effort reporting systems to document that salary charges align with actual effort. Understanding how these systems work helps you manage personnel costs compliantly. After-the-fact reporting means reporting effort actually expended, not what was budgeted. Even if you budgeted 25% effort on a grant, if actual effort was 20%, you should report and charge 20%. Effort reporting captures reality, not intentions. Reporting periods vary by institution, but are typically quarterly, semi-annual, or annual. More frequent reporting provides more accurate tracking, but requires more administrative effort. Your institution's policy determines the reporting cycle. Certification occurs at the end of each reporting period. Reconciliation compares payroll charges to certified effort. If payroll was distributed assuming 25% effort on your grant, but certified effort was 20%, a discrepancy exists. These discrepancies must be identified and resolved through appropriate adjustments. Cost transfers may be needed when charges differ from actual effort. If someone was paid 25% from your grant but only devoted 20% effort, 5% of charges should be transferred to another appropriate funding source. These adjustments should be made promptly. Late cost transfers attract scrutiny and may be disallowed. Key personnel receive special attention in grant management because of their importance to project success and the specific commitments made in proposals. Understanding key personnel requirements helps you manage these positions properly. Key personnel are individuals named in the proposal who have significant roles in the project. The principal investigator is always key personnel. Co-investigators, senior personnel, and others with substantial responsibilities may also be designated key personnel depending on funder requirements. Effort commitments for key personnel become part of your award terms. When you propose that the principal investigator will devote 20% effort and that proposal is funded, that commitment becomes binding. The expectation is that the PI will actually devote 20% effort throughout the project. Changes to key personnel effort require approval. If the PI needs to reduce effort significantly, perhaps because of new responsibilities or health issues, prior approval from the funder is typically required. Significant is often defined as a 25% reduction from committed levels, meaning dropping from 20% to 15% would require approval. Documentation of key personnel effort should be maintained throughout the project. Beyond regular effort certification, keeping records that demonstrate key personnel involvement protects against questions about whether committed effort was actually provided. Not all personnel on your grant need to be named as key personnel. Non-key positions offer more flexibility while still requiring thoughtful budgeting and justification. Position-based budgeting describes roles rather than naming specific individuals. Instead of naming Jane Smith as research assistant, you budget a research assistant position at a specified effort level and salary range. This approach works well for positions where the specific individual may change or is not yet identified. Flexibility is a major advantage of position-based budgeting. If your research assistant leaves, you can hire a replacement without seeking approval for a personnel change. The position continues even as individuals come and go. This flexibility helps projects adapt to normal personnel turnover. Justification for non-key positions should explain what the position will do and why it is needed. Reviewers want to understand how each position contributes to project success. A budget justification stating research assistant at 50% effort provides less useful information than explaining that the research assistant will conduct participant interviews, manage the study database, and coordinate site logistics. Effort levels should be based on realistic assessment of work requirements. Do not arbitrarily assign 50% effort because it seems reasonable. Consider what activities the position will perform and how much time those activities realistically require. Several common errors create compliance problems with personnel costs. Recognizing these pitfalls helps you avoid them in your own grant management. Overcommitment means total effort exceeding 100% across all activities. If someone commits 30% to 3 different grants plus 50% to instruction, that totals 140%, which is impossible. Institutions should monitor total commitments to prevent overcommitment. Salary mismatches occur when amounts charged differ from actual compensation. Charging a rate above what someone actually earns is obviously improper. Less obviously, charging rates below actual earnings while treating the work as compensated effort creates similar problems. Charges should reflect actual salary at appropriate effort levels. Inadequate documentation involves failing to certify or document effort properly. Missing effort certifications, late certifications, or certifications signed without genuine review all create compliance problems. Build effort certification into regular routines so it happens timely and thoughtfully. Unauthorized changes to key personnel occur when effort is reduced or individuals are changed without required approvals. Even well-intentioned adjustments can become compliance problems if proper approval was not obtained. Check your award terms for approval requirements before making changes. Academic institutions often have different appointment types that affect personnel cost calculations. Understanding these differences prevents budgeting errors for academic personnel. Academic year appointments typically cover 9 months of base salary. Faculty members on academic year appointments receive their institutional base salary for the academic year, usually August through May or similar periods. Their base appointment does not include summer months. Summer salary provides additional compensation during non-academic months. Faculty can seek grant funding to support summer research activities. This summer salary is often calculated as a fraction of the academic year salary, with common approaches including 1/9 of annual base for each summer month. Limitations often apply to summer salary. Many funders limit summer salary charges to 2 or 3 months equivalent. Some institutions have policies capping total summer compensation. Know the applicable limits before budgeting summer salary for faculty. Calculation methods differ for academic year versus calendar year employees. For calendar year employees, the calculation is straightforward: annual salary times percent effort. For academic year employees, you must account for the 9-month base separately from any summer salary, potentially using different calculation methods for each component. Proper documentation protects your organization during audits and demonstrates compliance with personnel cost requirements. Building good documentation practices from project start prevents problems later. Budget records should document how budgeted amounts were determined, what salary rate did you use, what effort level did you assume, what escalation factors did you apply for future years. Keep worksheets and calculations supporting your budget figures. Payroll records document actual salary charges to the grant. Your accounting system should capture salary distributions by funding source. These records enable reconciliation between budgeted and actual costs and support effort certification. Effort certifications are legal documents that must be retained per applicable retention requirements, typically 3 years after final financial report submission. Organize certifications so they can be located if requested during an audit. Electronic systems should maintain appropriate records and signatures. Approval documentation should record any personnel changes requiring funder approval. When you request approval for key personnel changes or significant effort modifications, keep copies of your request and the approval received. This documentation demonstrates that changes were properly authorized. Following best practices for personnel costs helps ensure compliance and supports effective project management. These practices should become routine aspects of your grant administration. Budget realistically by basing effort on actual work requirements rather than arbitrary allocations. Consider what activities each person will perform and how much time those activities require. Realistic budgeting prevents problems later when actual effort differs significantly from budgeted levels. Monitor regularly by tracking effort against commitments throughout the project. Do not wait until effort certification deadlines to notice that actual effort differs from plan. Regular monitoring enables timely adjustments and prevents the accumulation of discrepancies that become difficult to resolve. Certify timely by completing effort certification on schedule. Late certifications suggest poor administrative practices and may face increased scrutiny. Build certification deadlines into your calendar and complete them promptly. If you notice inaccuracies, address them through appropriate channels rather than ignoring problems. Communicate changes by addressing effort variations promptly. If key personnel cannot maintain committed effort, communicate with your program officer early. If non-key personnel effort needs adjustment, make payroll changes promptly. Proactive communication demonstrates responsible project management. Beyond effort documentation, personnel costs must meet reasonableness standards. Understanding salary reasonableness helps you budget appropriately and defend your costs if questioned. Comparability means salaries charged to grants should be comparable to what similar positions earn at your organization and at peer institutions in your area. If you propose paying a research coordinator significantly more than coordinators typically earn, auditors may question the reasonableness. Use salary surveys and comparable position data to benchmark proposed rates. Documentation supporting salary reasonableness should be available if questioned. How did you determine the proposed salary was appropriate? What comparable positions did you consider? What market data informed your decision? Being prepared to justify salary rates demonstrates thoughtful budgeting. Consistency requires paying similar rates for similar work across all funding sources. If you pay research assistants $20 per hour on federal grants, you should pay similar rates on foundation grants and institutionally funded activities. Inconsistent compensation raises questions about whether grant rates are reasonable. 2 CFR 200.430 requires that compensation be reasonable for the services rendered. This standard applies to all personnel costs charged to federal grants. Budgets proposing rates significantly above comparable positions face challenges during review and may be reduced or questioned during audit. Let us summarize the key points from this lesson on personnel costs. Personnel costs typically represent the largest category in grant budgets and require careful attention to both calculation and compliance. Understanding how to properly budget and document personnel costs is essential for successful grant management. The effort concept is foundational. Effort represents the proportion of time devoted to various activities, always totaling 100%. Project effort determines what fraction of salary is charged to your grant. Calculating personnel costs involves multiplying salary by effort percentage with adjustments for salary caps, multi-year escalation, and academic year appointments where applicable. Compliance is critical because effort certification carries legal accountability. Certifying inaccurate effort can constitute false claims with serious consequences. Organizations must maintain effort reporting systems that provide reasonable assurance that salary charges reflect actual effort. Regular monitoring, timely certification, and prompt adjustment of discrepancies support compliance. In our next lesson, we cover fringe benefits in detail. Fringe benefits represent the employer's costs beyond salary and are calculated as a percentage of personnel costs. Understanding fringe rates and calculations completes the picture of total personnel compensation charged to grants. Practice exercise. Calculate the personnel cost for a position at $60,000 annual salary, 20% effort, over a 3-year project with 3% annual salary increases. What is the total personnel cost for the 3 years?